Good afternoon. My name is Bashir Fancy, and I'm going to make a short presentation on the security, cybersecurity, and general issues. I'm going to keep it at a high level, but I will cover some very important areas that I hope that people will pay attention to, because I think that's where a lot of the problems are. I want to go to the detailed background. Is entirely possible. Mark has talked about it already. But the two relevant things, of course, I come from a finance background. I started my career at Price, and then on to Air Canada and banking and third-party processing for the banks. But the more relevant one is where I was at Visa, and I was at the headquarters, and I was the global head of internal audit, and of course, risk. I was the executive vice president and risk management and security for Visa. And I had my hands full with AISDS, DSS, which everybody knows as PCI DSS. Anyway, that's enough about that. What I wanted to talk about is some of the challenges. We're seeing a lot of problems right now around security. The cyber attacks are not disappearing, they're increasing every day. There's a lack of diversity, meaning thinking that doesn't help us at all. We don't have lateral thinking. We many times do the same old, or we let the vendors control how we approach. We don't have a risk management whatsoever in that. So that's not helping us at all. Now, everybody knows, and you heard it 100 times, our infrastructure and supply chains are more exposed and not secure. And I see the problems every day, as I'm sure you experience. Part of the problem, and still continue, is we've got a lot of silos. Now, hopefully the pandemic will break that, in that people will realize that, okay, it's not working, and start to rearrange, because we keep doing a lot of things, or we think we're doing different things, but that's not necessarily true. In some cases, it might be for some people. Now, if you look at a lot of the corporate world and big organization as well, at least I've done the review, so I'm talking not pulling a thing out of the hat here, is that there's significant amount of redundant and duplicate tools in companies. And I don't think people are really proficient in one of them. So that doesn't help. Our over-dependence on external vendors is pretty stunning. And we think that just because we have outsourced, it's not our problem. And I'll talk about it later, but we have a problem in the last few days with what's going on with Sunwing that everybody's following, and I will talk briefly about that. I don't know any more than a lot of people, but I can see some of the issues. Part of the problem also is that when we require some tools or whatever, you or I don't understand what we need, the vendor tells you. And the vendor's got complete control over what they supply us. They will tell us, and we go with it, rather than us trying to understand what we really need, and then going out and putting RFIs and RFPs to look at that. That's not how it works. It works. It's worked in the sales field for a long time. Take somebody out to the ball game, hockey game, take them out to lunches, and then you now got a lot of influence. I think that is not a good thing. So you need to have that independence. The corporate culture is such that it actually undermines a lot of these things, and it doesn't help. And you may be a good guy, you come out from, so you get sucked into. Now that hopefully won't. Oh, we got a fantastic chance with the pandemic. A lot of things have changed, and hopefully we can break that. But we have to do it and not continue the way we were doing. And fraud is not cost of doing business. When you look at cyber attacks and all that, we know people pay ransomware all the time, and the government does too. So Our other misplaced assumption is that we solve the problem through technology, and that is not correct. Technology is not the answer to everything. It's an enabler for sure, but it's not the answer to everything. So we need to get smart about this, which means also empowering our employees to understand, because your weakest link is going to be the biggest problem, and you can start to break silos and whatever. Do we have true shared services model? No, we don't. As I mentioned, there's global reset going on, so we need to make sure that our global thinking is also global and looking at the whole thing. And by global, not only just demographically, but even within our organization, as opposed to your department and your area division. You need to look at how the business itself is working. So, and who is involved in decision making. So that's a big problem. Just because you bought a tool or spent some money last year doesn't mean it's the right thing to do it now. As I said, we are now looking at things that have changed drastically. Do we have people who are thinking literally? I don't even want to use the word out of box because we've abused that. Good question. I don't think so. So supply chain is another problem. But biggest issue from my standpoint, because I had a visa about risk management and security, is our lack of risk management is really causing us big problems, but we don't seem to get it. We plug away at security and we think that's how problems solve. If you don't know where the data enters your organization, where it goes and where it ends up and who's touching it and why they're touching it, and I've created a framework for that, then how do you fix it? You're doing only your area and this area, that division, sorry, but it doesn't work. So that's why it's very, very important. It's just like a budget, which is a zero-based budget and business plan. We need to do a zero-based security to understand what is it that we need. Also understand employee skills in your organization, what we have, what we don't have. Can it be acquired? People can be trained? It's possible. You don't have to start firing people. You can train people and do that. So structure is also very important because of the structure. Now, classic one is the chief privacy officer reports to the legal counsel. I understand because there are legal ramifications. And guess what? Can they actually do the things on the system side? No, they can't, because you've got technology people handling that. So if you're reporting here, but everything you need to get done is on the other side, how do you actually achieve that? So I think we need to understand and change the structure also. If we're all going to be worrying about the quarterly reports as we do, and that's where bottom line making money is the driving motivation, then we're asking for trouble. We're already in trouble, and there'll be bigger trouble. So routine task, automate. Don't waste your time and effort on that. And leaders must make sure that you understand business, and therefore you walk the talk. And good security is not going to be just one thing. It's a result of doing many things right, and culture is the same thing too. So now we all know what to do. If you go into any company, people know what the job they have to do, but they don't know the why, and the why has changed and continues to change, and then we get in trouble because we don't understand. That's why I mentioned the word lateral thinkers, so that you start to look at it and saying, okay, that was the problem, I understand. What is the problem now? And is this solution that we continue to apply working or doesn't work? So unless we're doing that, we are not helping. At the highest level, very quickly would be, what is your business as you know it, your clients know it, and you start, when you're going down, you have to inventory all your software tools, every single tool that you think you have, and so you reconcile it with the financial records of what you bought. Because I found plenty of problems with the companies that bought tools, expensive one, millions of dollars, and they were about to buy it again because they didn't even know that they had it because they never used it. So you inventory all hardware, software tools, and you also start to inventory. What are you collecting? what is the data you're collecting? And then how it works today and what is that you need to change? Data classification, not everything needs to be, encrypted and protected, but key things. So what are those things? Have you done that? Outsourcing, and I will talk about that in more details, is a big, big issue. You did not outsource. Nobody outsourced because of the fact that they thought the other guy was top-notch in security. You outsourced because of the fact that it was cheaper to do that. Now it's continued. Yeah, then the people have become economies of scale. Good, some are good, some are okay, whatever. But who's responsible for what? So unless you start to understand that where you outsource is extension of your back office, it's not going to work. And so that is the other thing. Again, look at the contract. What are the contracts in place with these outsourcers? Who's responsible for what? And do we understand that? The people who are operating understand that, by the way, that's our responsibility. It's always going to be joint. The outsourcing company is not going to take responsible and spend millions on security if that's not what they're getting paid. So need to understand absolutely what is going on. Policies, and I'm giving you a high level because I'm trying to keep it very short. Policies, one of the big challenges is we got all sorts of things in place, but we don't even know if they're practical, they're enforceable, they're measurable. Yet then how do you train people? So you start to look at that, and it's a big issue. So cybersecurity is not just talking about bits and bytes and doing that, which we do too often. So then we wonder why we have a problem. You need to look at all that. When you do that, the policies cannot be confusing. It must be handling and dealing with today's issues. So unless we do that, but that requires people to listen to their staff and to whoever. So bottom line is paint it on, not bake. I beg your pardon. Don't paint it on, bake it in. It's like you making a baked goods. Bake it in. So it's part of that when you're eating, because you paint it on, it'll come off. And we do quite a lot of that. So all these things, and I can reverse them and saying, this is what you need to do. So it's not a question of what do we need to do. If I had longer time, I would be doing much more detail. But policies need to change. They can't be disjointed. They can't be complex. They cannot be costly, impractical. They have to be dynamic so you can keep updating it. Now, because I wanted to keep it 10 minutes, but I might be going a couple of minutes over. What is that I was talking about earlier when I was talking about failure of risk management and all? If you look at, and those, most of you would be aware that since last 4 days at the Toronto Pearson Airport, people are stuck because Sunwing flights were not taking off because the outsourcer who provided them the system to check in and whatever at the airport were hacked. So people are furious. This is from Sunday afternoon, I believe it is. So Sunday afternoon, Monday, Tuesday, today is Wednesday, and still people are facing delays. And yesterday, the CEO comes out and says that, okay, we'll compensate you if your delay was over 3 hours to whatever. Nobody knows what the compensation will be. But one of the things it points to, right off the bat, is where the contingency plan. If you have a problem, what would you and should you do? The communication to the public. Because if you look at the customers or talk to any of them, which the press are reporting from the airport, they are saying poor communication. We don't know what the heck is going on. Problem number one. So poor communication, there has to have been a lack of contingency plan, or if it was, there's a plan in place, obviously not understood by people or not relevant, because if there was, you wouldn't have this problem. Now they're saying we've gone to the old system and we're trying to train people. So the question is, how did you run into that? Did you not know that there's always a potential a system can go down or you can get hacked or whatever? So the thing we must be considered is that do we understand what potentially can go wrong? And if we do, what are the things we will do? How will you deal with that? And I don't think that we have actually dealt with it. If you're going to solve a problem and you're going to put in your son or whoever, do they understand whose responsibility it was? Was it an outsourcing? Did they have a deal with it? Excuse me, people like Air Canada or whoever saying we run into this problem. Can you please take over passengers or provide us aircraft in your system to check in the following people? If they had the records, I don't know. I have no clue. I can only go by this is not the one I investigated. A lot of the ones I can give you in-depth information because I was this, I was not. And I do know a thing or two about airlines. I was with Air Canada in a senior role, and it's kind of frustrating when I see that sort of thing because there was always that possibility, and you would have a contingency plan. No different than when people go on strike. So people need to remember security doesn't show up on the horizon suddenly. It comes and it's been knocking the door from here, there, and the other. People do testing. And so if you don't have early markers to pick it up, then we're going nowhere with that. So that's extremely important. The other thing of concern, and I don't know numbers now, but 10, 12 months ago, there was a serious concern because of the fact that a lot of people who were in cybersecurity actually left, meaning they were probably still working for the company, but they're working for the other guys because, they were under a lot of pain for money. And so that's very, very dangerous. And you have to have oversight and checks and balances. I don't know what checks and balances they have when you're trying to cut costs. Doesn't work very well. So that's the other challenge. So I think we need to get back to basics, like I said earlier. Understand employee skills, what is needed, outsourcers, in-source, who does what, and then have very good oversight. But I think you need to bring in new people from inside also to review. Don't do the same old. I never allowed that in internal audit because it became a problem. You get so familiar that complacency kicks in. You say, yeah, I will check that. It's no problem. I'm sorry, but two seconds after you've done that walkway, things can change. And it does. Those of you in finance understand a balance sheet means nothing. It's as at December 31, and you pass midnight, and guess what? One entry can kill the business because things change. That's why the balance sheet says as that. So understand your structure, change it as needed. Think about the structure for tomorrow. Don't go with the past thinking. So the conduct risk, and conduct risk is culture. If you don't change that, then there's a challenge. So I won't belabor that. I apologize because I have had a challenge and an injury I had to deal with. That's why I could have been a hell of a lot better prepared and I got a presentation done here. But I hope that I've given you enough meat to think about it, and then you can turn around and take from there and benefit. So I really appreciate those of you who are listening today that this benefits you. Take care. All the very best. And my emails are there, and Mark will give you somebody else's questions. I'll be very happy to answer. Take care and all the best. Take care. Bye.